All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to today's webinar, 4 ways for guys to get a real transformation in any gym. So the purpose of this webinar is to show you how you can do simple, effective training methods and good quality nutrition without having to go over the top and spend your entire life in the gym or eat out of Tupperware all day, every day. So there's 4 topics we need to cover for that. Number 1 is strength training to get shredded up. Number 2 is quick cheater cardio. Number 3 is why toxins stop you from losing weight. That's really about food quality though. And then number 4 is a special bonus topic I'll show you at the very end. So we've got a problem. Humanity is fucked. Okay, in the last 10 years, the 100-meter world record, the marathon world record, weightlifting world records, and the long jump world record have all been broken. We're fitter, stronger, faster, we can jump higher, we can run longer, and we know more about the human body and physiology than at any point in our evolution. Okay, we know more about what makes us tick, we know more about food, we know more about training, we know more about recovery, flexibility, nutrition, stability, mobility. Any topic you can think of relating to human performance, we know more now than we did 10 years ago, and we are still fatter than at any other point in history. Okay, that's an absolutely insane scenario to be in. And I believe there's 3 or 4 fundamental topics as to why that exists, and that's what I want to talk to you today about. So, the first one to talk about is strength training. So, when we talk about strength training, really what we're talking about is getting stronger against external resistance like weightlifting or with body weight like pull-ups, dips, push-ups, that sort of stuff. Okay, so strength training is super important because stronger people are harder to kill and more useful in general. Okay, there's literally no point in your life where being stronger is a weakness. Okay, when you're stronger, you have a higher metabolic rate, you've got stronger bones, you've got stronger joints, you've got stronger connective tissue, you're less injury prone, and you're more resilient to the challenges of everyday life. There's 3 main markers of longevity and life quality, okay? Body composition, so how much body fat versus muscle are you carrying? VO2 max, so your cardio capacity, and number 3, lower limb strength, so leg strength. Okay, strength training is going to cover off 2 out of those 3 factors, and then when we talk about cardio afterwards, that's going to kill the other one. So the simple answer is if you want to be healthier and live longer and look better, then get stronger and get fitter. So when we talk about strength training, we're talking about 3 things, okay? Programming, progression, and Protekkers. Okay, Protekkers is also technique, but I ran out of P's. So when we're talking about programming, people always they seem to go over the top a little bit with this. Strength training, programming, and designing workout routines is pretty simple, okay? So hopefully you have a piece of paper with you. If you don't, pause this video and go and get one. Like pull out a notepad or something like that because you're going to need to take notes. You're going to need to take notes on these exercises and how to set your training program up. Okay, so pause the video, go and get it. If you're listening to this now, I assume you have a piece of paper and pen in front of you. So let's plow on. You're going to train 3 to 4 times per week. You don't need to train 5, 6, 7 times a week. You don't need to train twice per day. You don't need to develop this ridiculous morning evening routine to get in shape. You simply don't. Look, training, it should be something that adds to your life, not something that becomes your life. So you're going to train 3 to 4 times per week, and you're going to focus on compound movements first. So a compound movement is something that's multi-joint, so it uses multiple joints at the same time, and uses a lot of muscle mass. So think about a squat, a bench press, or a deadlift. They all use several muscle groups and several joints are moving at the same time. So you're going to do a compound movement and then follow up with 3 to 5 other exercises. And if in doubt, here's what you do. The first movement is 5 by 5, the next 2 are 5 by 8, and then the final 2 are 5 by 12. So let's say you're squatting, and this is where you're supposed to start taking notes. Your first movement will be a squat for 5 sets of 5 reps. Your second movement will be a front squat for 5 sets of 8 reps. Your third movement will be a sumo deadlift for 5 sets of 8 reps. Then you're going to go into some single leg and hamstring work. So you got lunges for 5 sets of 12 on each leg and leg curls for 5 sets of 12 on each leg. Bench press then on the next day, bench press for 5 sets of 5, followed by dumbbell bench press and incline bench press for 5 sets of 8. Then a dumbbell row and a dumbbell fly, both for 5 sets of 12. On the deadlift, you got a deadlift for 5 sets of 5, a stiff leg deadlift for 5 sets of 8, a bent over row for 5 sets of 8, and then some pull downs and some face pulls for 5 sets of 12. That's 15 movements. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. All you've got to do then is think about progression. So progression is really the SEDS principle. If you've never seen the SEDS principle, what the SEDS principle is a specific adaptation to an imposed demand. Okay, so in this scenario, the specific adaptation we're looking for is for you to get stronger and build more muscle. And the imposed demand is increased weight workout by workout. So like said another way, it means when you increase the weight workout by workout, you'll get bigger and stronger. It's not really revolutionary, but it's something that you've got to remember. Over the course of the next 6 weeks and 6 months, you should be increasing the volume of your workout and the weights you're lifting. If you're not doing that, then there's something wrong with your programming. So, like I said in the previous slide, you start heavy and you work lighter. So you're starting like a powerlifter, focusing on strength, and then as the workout goes on, you're focusing more on like hypertrophy ranges, so muscular size ranges, like a bodybuilder would. The basic metric we use in RevFit for guys when they start training with us is if we can't help them turn their 1 RM, so their 1 rep max, into a 3 rep max by the end of 6 weeks, something's gone wrong. The thing with that is, though, most guys won't achieve that in 6 months, but with smart programming, you can do it in 6 weeks. Protekkers, look, Protekkers is technique, but I wanted another P in there. When it comes to technique, it's probably the most crucial thing you're not looking after right now. I train in a number of commercial gyms, and I kind of float around the gym scene in Ireland, mostly to keep myself occupied, because when you're training, 5, 6 times a week for powerlifting competitions, it can get boring doing the same thing in the same gym all the time. One of the things that floating around gyms has afforded me the opportunity to do is see how badly most people treat their body. Okay, so that's why the first point on this is, do you hate your body? Because if you have bad technique or if you have unsafe technique, that's basically what you're saying. So if your squats aren't going down all the way, if your back rounds when you're deadlifting, if you're bouncing your bench presses, or just doing stuff that looks crap, you're probably going to do long-term damage to your body. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in 6 months' time or in 12 months' time, you're going to start to develop aches and pains that you didn't see coming. Okay. And those chronic overuse injuries are going to screw you. They're going to keep you out of the gym. They're going to rob your passion for training. And they're really going to stop you from making progress towards the body of your dreams. So when we talk about technique, what we have to talk about is mechanics, consistency, and intensity. The mechanics are you doing the lift correctly? Okay, so does your squat look like a squat? Do you have sufficient stability and mobility through the main joints in your body for the lift to be performed the way it should be? Once you can do it the right way, so once your mechanics are on point, what you're then looking for is consistency. Can you consistently do it? Okay, it's great doing like 2 reps on a squat, but if the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rep turns to shit, then you're still doing damage to your body. Okay, so mechanics first, consistency then is next. Can you consistently get it right? And once you consistently get it right, then you bring intensity into play. So intensity is, it's weight, it's reps, it's sets, it's tempo, it's rest period. It's making the exercise more difficult and more challenging by changing a variable. What you're looking for really in that situation is you're trying to ramp up the intensity, so make it more difficult, while maintaining mechanics and consistency. Now, that's going to be a balancing act, and if you're not familiar with your kind of upper levels of ability, you're going to get it wrong a few times. But what you need to think about is, once my mechanics or my consistency drop off, my intensity's probably gone too high, so I might need to dial it back 4 or 5%. Okay? The overriding rule through all of this is, if it looks shit, it probably is shit. So if you look at your lift, or if it feels like crap, then you probably are doing it wrong. If it feels sketchy, it is sketchy. And look, if you're ever in doubt with that sort of thing, the best way to take care of it is to coach it out. It's to find somebody near to you who knows what they're doing, and get them to help. Okay, that may be a personal trainer in your gym. It may be sending videos to us in RevFit. It could be anything. But basically, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you've been training for a while and things are starting to feel sketchy, you need somebody with a more experienced eye to look it over for you and to show you what to do. Okay, so that's strength training. Next up is quick cheater cardio. And the reason why I'm calling it quick cheater cardio is because when you do this right, you'll get way more benefits in a much faster time period than you otherwise would. So when it comes to cardio, you've two traditional options, right? You've slow and steady or fast and hard. Okay, so slow and steady is, stuff like going for a run for 60 minutes, like a jog, or it's jumping onto the cross trainer and slugging it 35 or 40 minutes at like 70 to 75% of aerobic capacity. Fast and hard is high intensity interval training. It's sprints, it's prowler, it's circuits, it's the stuff that gets you out of breath fast. Okay, after that, we're going to talk about the metabolic benefits of sprints, and then we're going to hit on to some contraindications. So basically, guys, contraindications are there times when you need to be careful and things you got to watch out for. So slow and steady versus fast and hard. Getting in shape can be done either way. Okay, jogging or like slow steady state runs are totally okay. Sprinting is totally okay, but sprinting will get you there faster with probably less damage to your body. Okay, so you've got to remember, anytime you train, it's a stressor. And the more stress you put on your body, the harder it's going to find it to recover. So what you need to do is get the most bang for your buck. Look for the minimum effective dose. And for me, I'd rather spend 12 to 15 minutes doing that than 45 to 60. It's like a third of the time. So when it comes to time, cost, benefit, what you've got to consider is with high intensity interval training, so stuff like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, etc., you're looking at a real and sustained change in your muscular structure. Okay, with low intensity training, so steady state cardio, jogs, cycling, cross trainer, that sort of stuff, all you're really getting is a momentary effect during the activity. So that means while you're training, you burn some calories, but once you stop training, the additional calorie burn is zero. With high intensity interval training, you will still be burning calories even after you finish. So eventually then, as you get better at light intensity training, at jogging and running, the only way to get a higher calorie burn is to go for longer. And that's not exactly efficient. So with high intensity interval training, you have like a real actual change happening. So what happens is the mitochondrial density in your muscle cells increases. And these boys are responsible for energy production. They have a very high metabolic demand. So they're like the energy center of your cell. So as the energy demand goes up, your metabolism goes up. And when your metabolism goes up, your calorie usage goes up. So that means even at rest, you're burning more calories. And just as a random aside, one of the reasons why increased muscle mass is a really good way to increase your calorie burn even when doing nothing is because muscles have the greatest mitochondrial density. So more muscle equals faster metabolism. So that's the whole time cost benefit issue. The other thing to think about is a 10-kilometer run effectively requires you to do 10,000 steps. Okay? 10 sprints requires a hell of a lot less. Every time you land when you're running, and I'm punching my hand here to simulate it, you're putting like 3 to 5 times or more the force or the weight of your entire body onto one leg. Okay, so that constant pounding day after day, time after time, can lead to overuse injuries. It can lead to sore knees and sore hips, a tight back, locked up hips. And if you're not doing stuff to counteract that, then what you risk is injury down the road. Whereas if you do 10 sprints, you're just straight up a hill, minimal stress. It's very tough on your cardiovascular system, but on your joints and muscles, it's a lot easier to recover from. And then, look, there's the intangible mental benefit of things. So, like the intangible mental benefit is when you go out and when you kill yourself on a hill, when you put yourself into a really deep, dark place and get your heart rate up and you sweat and you're pushing, you develop this like next level awareness. It's like, fuck, I can actually grab my body and drag it wherever I want it to go. I can force myself through the indomitable power of my will to become fitter, faster, and stronger. There's no challenge I can't take on. If I can overcome my own body and my own head, what can stop me in life? That's how powerful this stuff is. Whereas going for a run is just, I went for a run. Brilliant. So when you're setting this up, what you need to think about is, what have you got access to? Okay, so in an ideal world, you'd have like a hill with a shallow incline. This could be a treadmill in the gym if you wanted, but outdoors is probably better. So let's say you get a hill between 20 and 60 meters long. If you're a real looper, you can go to slightly more aggressive incline, but for most of you guys, I'd say a shallow incline is cool. The reason why the hill sprints are so important is because you don't have the decelerative effect of the run. So when you're running, most hamstring pulls happen on the slowing down phase or the change of direction phase. So the hill essentially acts as a brake. So instead of having to use your body as a brake, the hill will do that for you. If you think about it, it makes sense. When you're running up a hill, once you stop running, you don't continue moving. Whereas when you're on the flat, if you stop sprinting, you have to jog it out before you get to stop. So hill sprints are much easier to recover from, and they're a much safer way of doing things. So you're looking for a hill 20 to 60 meters long. You're going to sprint it hard. So obviously, before you start that, you do a good comprehensive warm-up. You make sure all your joints are moving, all your muscles are warm. You hit like 2 or 3 runs up at a hill at about 50 to 75% intensity, just to get a feel for it and to stretch your legs out. Once you get that done, then it's time to dig into the training properly. And what you're looking at with that is, day 1, you're starting with maybe 5 or 6 hill sprints. So you're going to sprint up to the top of the hill, turn around, and walk back down. From the time you hit the top of the hill to you start your next sprint, you're looking at about 45 to 60 seconds. Okay, so sprint up, get to the top, walk back down, 45 to 60 seconds later, you go again. Do that 5 to 6 times on your first day. On day 2, so let's call day 1 a Tuesday. Then on day 2, you're going to do it twice a week. Okay, so day 2 is Thursday. And if you did 5 on day 1, you do 6 on day 2. If you did 6 on day 1, you do 7 on day 2. And then over the course of the next 6 weeks, which is going to be, like 12 sprint sessions in total, you're trying to add in a rep each time. So eventually you started at 5, you end up with like 16 or 17 sprints. Again, that'll probably take you about 20, 25 minutes. But at the top level, then you've done a huge increase in your capacity. Your aerobic and anaerobic fitness will be up, and I guarantee you will have dropped body fat. So, furthermore, there is some metabolic benefits of sprinting, which is why it's so important. So the 3 here are mainly insulin, testosterone, and the hunger response. So insulin it's your friend and it's your enemy. So insulin is like the storage hormone. It unlocks the doors of your muscle and allows you to put stuff in there for safekeeping. So think about it this way. When you want to get energy into a muscle cell, like if you want to store carbohydrates in there, if insulin isn't there to open the door, or if the door stays closed, it has to go somewhere else. And in going somewhere else, it stays in the bloodstream or it goes to fat stores, which is not very cool. So insulin is a very powerful effect. And essentially, when you're training or when you're sprinting, what you're doing is dumping energy out of the muscle. So you're taking the stored energy you have in the muscle and you're removing it, which means then there's room for new energy to go in and stay there. So that means you end up with improved sensitivity to insulin and reduced resistance, okay? So that's super important, because if you're like most people in Ireland, you probably have a pretty high carbohydrate diet. And later on, we're going to talk about why that may not necessarily be good, but let's live life in the real world here. If you've got a high carbohydrate-based diet, you probably have blood sugar regulation issues. So when your body gets too many carbohydrates in, it doesn't really know how to handle them, and insulin is no longer doing its job. When I say insulin resistant, that's what I mean. You're now resistant to the effects of insulin. You want to flip it the other way and become sensitive to it, because it just means that your body is in a better state to process food naturally. And that's one of the really cool things that sprinting does. It will help improve insulin sensitivity and give you enhanced glucose tolerance. That means when you do have a load of carbs, you kind of get away with it a little bit better than if you didn't. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, guys, underneath this video there's a contact box where you can just shoot me an email. I'll explain a little bit more then. Then that's the whole testosterone growth hormone, IGF-1 thing. I haven't mentioned anything about your liver yet, but it's one of the most important processing sites of your body. When that's screwed up, everything else becomes impaired. So just keep that in mind for a second. So essentially, growth hormone should translate to IGF-1, which should then help you recover. You should grow, you should burn more fat and gain more muscle. So these things will help enhance your recovery and your fat loss. The real benefit of doing sprints is that these levels are elevated 24, 48 hours afterwards, so in the post-workout window, which you simply just don't get with light intensity training. So that means that your calorie demand stays elevated, sustained, and there's beneficial effects when it comes to aging and cellular aging. So really simple, don't need to go over the top with it, but basically when you sprint, you tolerate carbohydrates better, you improve insulin sensitivity, and you will over time recover better. Finally then, we got the hunger response, okay? So it's a marginal thing, but it's important. So high intensity interval training can blunt the hunger response better than light intensity training will. So that means sprints can be better than jogging when it comes to not overeating immediately after the workout. Okay. Over the course of the following day, there will be some adjustment when it comes to total calorie intake, but the calorie output from the sprints is higher anyway, so you still end up in a net positive position. Now, before you go out and do your sprints and before you start smashing yourself into the ground, there is one or two things I need you to be aware of on this, okay? If you are very overweight currently, like a super high BMI or super high body fat percentage levels, it's probably not the right starting point for you, okay? So if your BMI is like 35 plus, or if your body fat is 30+%, you need to be super careful on this, okay? Because, you know, even if it is slightly less impactful than going for a 10K run, you may not be ready for it yet. And I don't want to see you go out and get injured. So if you're slightly overweight and if you have a bit of fat to lose, but you don't have serious health concerns, then you should probably go out and hammer the hills. If you're very overweight, if you have a really high BMI and a super high body fat percentage, you probably need to be a little bit more smart about this. Concentrate on just moving more first. Get out for 3 or 4 60-minute walks each week. Start to decrease your carb intake and decrease your calorie intake, and just be a little bit more smart about it that way. If that is you, touch base, let me know, and I have a couple of other suggestions that would be relative for you. So this is for guys who've done a little bit of training, who are already in a gym, and they're just trying to ramp it up to the next level. But that's not everybody. If you have some sort of pre-existing soft tissue injury or joint injury, then obviously you need to be careful on this. So if you have a pulled hamstring, please do not go out and sprint. If you have no cartilage in your knee, please do not go out and sprint. If you have some sort of like ankle ligament issue, please do not go out and sprint. Okay, that's common sense, but I just want to reinforce it for you. Finally then, we got work capacity concerns. So work capacity is your ability to get stuff done. So don't run before you can walk. Okay, so if this is your first exposure to any sort of cardiovascular training in the last 20 years, you probably don't want to go out and sprint. You want to take it slow and steady, build up. This is where cardio and traditional light intensity interval training can become really beneficial. Because if you're starting from 0, you don't want to do the things that'll get you to 100, because then there's nowhere else to go after that. The other thing to consider now with the high intensity interval training is it's not really a year-round thing. Most of the studies, when you look at them, show a really big benefit and increase in fitness, cardio, and fat burning in the first 6 to 8 weeks. And after that, it starts to taper off. Okay, so when I say it's a super way to get things done, it is, but it's not a 24/7, 365 sort of game. Like concentrated periods of fat loss interspersed with maintenance and muscle building, followed by another fat loss period, can work really well. So if you spend 6 weeks focusing on fat loss, 6 weeks focusing on strength gain, or 4 weeks focusing on fat loss, 4 weeks focusing on strength gain, 4 weeks on fat loss, 4 weeks on strength gain, then you will see longer, better results for that. When you're doing your, let's say, that 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off sort of setup, what you're looking to do is for 4 weeks of fat loss, that becomes your priority. the 4 weeks of strength training, you go into maintenance mode. So you try and sustain the weight loss you just got. One of the biggest things that cause people to fail diets is that they will overeat, or sorry, they'll diet and they'll undereat for a period of time. And then once that finishes, they'll just go back to overeating again. And you end up with this yo-yo up and down weight loss thing where you're gaining, you're losing, you're gaining, you're losing, and then 6 months later, you've gone nowhere. So what would be really good for you is if you do 4 weeks of concentrated fat loss training, 4 weeks holding that new body weight, so increasing your calorie intake slightly, another 4 weeks losing fat, another 4 weeks holding, because over time you start to develop the habit of learning how to hold your body weight at the correct number rather than seeing it constantly zigzag up and down. All right, so let's talk about why toxins are stopping you from losing weight now. Look, honestly, guys, when I talk about this, if you just ate better quality food and tried not to go out on the piss as much, you could just ignore this entire topic. But look, let's dig into it a little bit for a second. So we're going to talk about 3 things. When good things go bad, would you open a nuclear waste site and then restore normal function? So when good things go bad, look, we are in a world of manufacturing. We're in a world where we've manufactured new things, new chemicals, new pesticides, new fertilizers, things that never existed back 1,000 years ago. And that's good and bad. I mean, it's helped us feed the world, but it's also had negative impacts on our health. So we've got a lot more man-made chemicals, pesticides, and fertilizers than we've ever had at any point in our existence. Again, that used to be good because it helped feed populations that couldn't get food. But now, look, the Western world is quite lucky. We live in a time of abundance. We have more food than we need. If we can get away from this processed manufactured type of food towards more natural food that would have been around, 100, 1,000 years ago, we're going to be healthy. With all of this, what I need you to think about is when you move further away from nature, you end up more unhealthy. Okay? So let's say, for example, you have a chicken breast. That's a lot better than a breaded chicken fillet. Okay? So it's again, the breaded chicken fillet is a lot better than a Snickers bar. Okay, so we're talking about degrees and levels here. So try not to obsess about it, but just be aware that if you can move your nutrition towards nature, you're going to be better. There's a couple of reasons why that's important, though. When it comes to the whole toxin thing, like fat cells basically act as a storage site in your body. Okay, if there is any harmful toxins floating around, your body will recognize that and look to store them somewhere. Okay, it's not just going to let them float around your bloodstream causing damage, and that goes into fat cells. The more toxins you have, the harder it's going to be to lose weight because your body's less willing to give up those fat cells for it. But not only that, like you have a negative effect on hormone function and hormone interaction within your body. So again, look, we don't need to worry about the deep dive one on this, but basically what I need you to think about is when your food is more fertilized, has more chemicals, and has less nature to it, it's not good. That also becomes important when you talk about your fat cells. Okay, so your body should sit in this kind of homeostatic, balanced area. So it sends signals to itself and back from itself to tell you to eat, to tell it to relax, to tell you to feed more, and tell you to feed less. So your body doesn't want to be fat. It doesn't want to be grossly overweight. There's a feedback loop inside of your body which should tell you when to eat and when not to eat. The problem is that feedback loop for most people now is broken. So it's impaired leptin production is really what we're talking about, and also leptin resistance. So leptin is a hormone that says you're full, stop eating, or you're hungry, start eating. Well, it's not. Don't worry too much about that. Basically, leptin should tell you when you need to stop eating. But if your fat cells are damaged and they don't produce enough leptin, and your body doesn't realize it's overweight, you keep eating. Your appetite's fucked, you overeat, and it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle of weight gain. Again, if you forget everything and just think about, hey, if I eat closer to nature, to real food, to meat and veg, to nuts and seeds, to good quality starchy carbs like potatoes, rice, and oats, and have a good quantity of green vegetables and some healthy fats, I'll be okay. That's all you need to think about, guys. Do not overcomplicate this. And then finally, we've got the whole toxin level thyroid disruption thing. So the thyroid is like the master governor of your metabolism within your body, okay? And your liver is the center of everything. So if it's not functioning optimally, the T4 to T3 conversion won't operate as efficiently. So basically what that means is the thyroid hormones in your body need to be converted to usable hormones for your thyroid. And if that's not happening, your body will not have its metabolic rate where it should. So this is why thyroid problems are so damaging for people, and people who have underactive thyroids are more prone to weight gain and less energy because their metabolic function is disrupted and their metabolic rate drops. So they gain weight easier, even off of low levels of food. Now, unless you've had this medically checked out and unless you have a legitimate thyroid issue, you probably don't have this as an excuse in your arsenal. If you do, you should be under medical care and supervision and you should be getting help with this. But for 99.9% of people watching this, the reason why you're overweight is not because of thyroid dysfunction. It's simply because you're overeating or not moving enough or not eating the right foods. So, really briefly, when we talked about toxins, they're essentially a nuclear waste site. You don't want to open one of those up because you know you're going to get hurt. Okay, so one study found that a 12% body weight drop, so liberation of fat cells, led to a 23 to 51% increase in toxin levels. Just think about that for a second, okay? That is a lot of shit being dumped back into your body. And naturally enough, your body will go, oh, don't really want that, not fancying that today, and it'll resist the fat loss. Okay, so it'll do everything in its power to stop you hurting it. Your body's main function is survival. Anything you do that's a threat to that survival will be resisted. Okay, so obviously, and the final thing then is, look, alcohol is a really obvious one. If liver function is super important and you're constantly bombarding with alcohol, you're probably not doing it a favor. So you need to give your liver a break. And that's not to say don't drink again ever. It's just be smarter about it. Don't drink 5 nights a week. Don't go on the piss every single weekend. Don't start at 6 and finish at like 4 a.m. in coppers. That's not smart. Okay, so give your liver a break. Let it get back to a normal function. This is what happens when people talk about detoxing. And there's nothing wrong with the concept of a detox because really all a detox is giving your body a chance to restore normal function by eliminating the non-natural foods. Look at any detox diet and what you typically see is a lot of clean meat, a lot of vegetables, a lot of juices. So it puts a less of a demand on your body's digestive capacities, and it just gives it a chance to kind of recover and heal itself. Your liver is responsible for detoxing your body, and by giving it a break and allowing it to restore and regenerate as normal, you're more likely to be successful. That's all a detox is. And finally, then, you want to kill the problem as a baby. And what I mean by that is, you never want to get it to the stage where you have like fatty liver disease or you have some major issue like that. What you're looking to do is just go, right, yesterday I wasn't very good. Today I'm going to be a little bit better. And the next day I'm going to try and improve my food quality a little bit more. Okay, so it doesn't have to be complicated. Okay, just eat real food. Finally then, the last thing I want to talk about is playing the brain game. Okay, so this is one you've probably never considered before. Okay, but there's 3 levels to your brain, and you can see it on the screen here. There's your reptilian brain, there's your limbic system or your mammalian brain, and then there's your neocortex. So your reptilian brain is like, it's the oldest part of your brain. Okay, it's the one that's responsible for the 5 Fs. Fight, flight, freeze, fuck, and fight, flight, freeze, fuck, and fight, flight. Drawing an absolute blank here on the 5th one. Fight, flight, freeze, fuck, and food. Jesus, that's embarrassing, guys. Okay, so food. Okay, your reptilian brain is responsible for living, for sustaining the species, and for keeping going. So if it feels under threat, it'll go and either fight, or it'll flee, or it'll freeze. It needs to fuck or fornicate to keep the species going, and it needs food to make sure it survives through to the next day. Your mammalian brain is responsible for love and connection, so for social hierarchy, for tribal mentalities, and for connection. And then your human brain is obviously your logic and creative brain. That's important because when it comes to fat loss and fat gain, one of the biggest things that people have going on is they have massive stress responses. So the stress response is basically you reacting to either imagined or real stress. So, like, let's say at the moment you're late for work, okay? If you were listening to this in the car and you were late for work, and there was traffic everywhere and some jackass cut you off, you'd probably flip the hell out, okay? Your body would see that as like an attack and a threat to its survival. You know, you're afraid you're going to go in, your boss is going to tear you a new one, you're going to get fired, you get fired, you've no paycheck, your family can't afford to eat, your wife leaves you, your kids hate you, and then you die. That's what's going on in the background when we stress out about stuff. Okay, that's never going to happen. It's a complete creation in our brain, but it's something that we perceive to happen, and that sets off this massive stress response in our body. So the stress response is basically the first thing that happens is your body goes to war. Okay, adrenaline levels shoot up, your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, blood is redistributed to working tissues, and all secondary functions like digestion, growth, and like higher logical thinking are suppressed, because right then at that point in time your body's only consideration is, I need to survive the next 45 to 60 seconds. Okay, so it's getting up for a fight basically. Cortisol then shoots in as a support to that. So cortisol you get referred to as a stress hormone. Okay, so really its only job is energy liberation. So it helps liberate energy from cells. That may mean like on longer term stress, like muscle breakdown, but its initial function is just to support adrenaline and give you more energy. Okay, so the thing with cortisol is it's catabolic, and catabolic means breaking down. It's breaking down tissue for energy. When you're lifting weights and when you're training, you're looking to be anabolic. You're looking to gain new tissue, and you're looking to convert like amino acids and its constituent parts into new muscle. And anabolism and catabolism can't really exist together. So if you're stressed and you're highly stressed, you're going to struggle to gain muscle and to lose fat. So learning how to manage that is super important, and that's why learning how to go from stressed out to wusa is crucial. So when stress grows, testosterone goes. What that means is basically testosterone is like it's the thing that makes you a man. Okay, look, it puts hair in your chest and makes your dick hard. Okay, that's its function. It helps to regrow new muscle tissue or regrow old tissue and build new tissue. Okay, we have a hell of a lot more of it than girls do. That's why we're so aggressive, and that's why we gain muscle easily, or at least more easily than females. Okay, but it's a non-essential function in an immediate survival context. Like, think about it this way. If you're being chased by a lion, your body isn't thinking, I need to smack another inch onto my biceps. Okay, its only concern is not getting eaten at that point in time. So if you're stressed out, your testosterone production is impaired. There's a high correlation between high stress and low testosterone. And look, even if there's no measurable real life benefit to that, it's super important from a recovery standpoint, and because being stressed out just sucks. So when it comes to not being stressed, there's a couple of things you need to think about, right? If you were with a group of people and you all threw your problems into a pile, you'd probably take your own back pretty quickly. Okay, so we're in a pretty solid situation now in our evolution where we have electricity, we have running water, we have a toilet, we have food. You know, we're pretty healthy, we're pretty lucky. But we don't take appreciation for that. And one of the best ways you can move away from negativity and anger is to have a greater level of appreciation for the things you do have. So every morning and every evening, there's something I want you to do for the next week. And that's really simple. I want you to name 3 things you're grateful for. So when you wake up in the morning and when you're lying in bed, before you get out of bed, name 3 things you're grateful for. Think of one person or thing that you love, and then think of one challenge you're looking forward to each day. Okay? Or you're looking forward to the next day if you do this in the evening. So in the morning, 3 things you're grateful for. One thing or one person you love, and then one challenge you're looking forward to the next day or later on that day. What you're doing is you're training your brain to be positive. You're training your mind and body to find positivity in everything. So rather than seeing roadblocks, you see challenges. Rather than seeing the bad, you see the good. Okay, what you focus on is what you get. So if you can switch your thinking, your life will be so much better for it. Okay. That being said, you'll probably still feel overwhelmed during the day. You'll probably still feel stressed out. One of the most powerful ways to avoid overwhelm and to avoid that feeling of uncontrollable stress, is to do a brain dump. So to take out a list of paper or a sheet of paper and list off everything in your head that's bothering you, okay? So what you're trying to do is collect the abstract thoughts and put them on paper to make them actionable. Because when they're in our head, we run off with them. We become so overwhelmed by all the things that could happen, and we've so much going on, and we have all these new problems then after that, that we never actually take a chance to tackle them, and we never put a clear plan of action in place to fix them. So what I want you to do is, the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, take out a sheet of paper, set 5 minutes on your stopwatch, spend those 5 minutes writing down all the shit you're worried about. If you ever find yourself struggling to sleep at night, this is another amazing thing you can do before you go to bed. Just dump out the problems, put them on paper, put the paper aside, say to yourself, okay, they're there to be tackled tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll tackle them, but right now I need to sleep. Okay? It'll make your night so much easier. It'll make it so much easier to get down and get good quality sleep, which will then further increase recovery and reduce stress levels. Okay? Again, vicious circle. Finally then, let's talk about meditation. Okay? Meditation is really just learning how to control your breathing and taking time out for you. Okay? It's not this humming bullshit. You don't have to sit cross-legged on top of a mountain. Meditation is nothing more than taking 5 minutes a few times a day or even once a day just to control your breathing and take your heart rate back down, to take your body out of that sympathetic war state and bring it back into the peace or parasympathetic state. It'll restore your focus, it'll make it easier for you to concentrate on tasks, and you'll get stuff done a lot better. When it comes to meditation, the easiest way to do it is to do it through some sort of guided meditation app. So you got two main options that I really like. Number one is an app you can download called MyCalmBeat, and the other one is called Headspace. Both really cool tools that'll just give you a chance to switch off for 5 minutes. Look, consider it your cigarette break. When people go outside to smoke, they take some deep breaths. They pull in a hell of a lot of bad stuff with it, but that's smoking is meditation, okay? So do a healthier form of meditation, download MyCalmBeat, download Headspace, and get to it. All right, guys, that is the webinar done. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with me. And hopefully now you have the ability to go and take the principles here and apply them into your own training. We're always on the other end of the line to help out. If you need anything, just go to the contacts box below here or click on the link, shoot us a mail, and we'll do our best to help you out. Okay, guys, peace out and stay strong.